Today we're here to talk about a woman of substance, the life and times of Alberta Christian, born on June 12, 1929 on the British West Indian island of Dominica, which is in the southern Caribbean. It really takes you through a very fascinating time in human history, in particular the history of the islands, the Great Depression, World War II, universal adult suffrage, and those islands coming into their own and becoming independent nation states. Through that period, married to Wendell Christian, World War II, British Army veteran, Alberta Christian becomes a woman of substance by being a community leader, a 4-H club leader, someone who is a founding member of the Dominica branch of the British Red Cross, and for 25 years, manager of the Workshop for the Blind. In this fascinating series of interviews with her children and grandchildren, we learn about someone who, through dint of faith, discipline, perseverance, and a focus, an irrevocable focus on education, produced a great many victories that benefited her community, her children, and indeed the world. So, folks, right up, next on Carib Nation, a woman of substance. Welcome to Carib Nation. My name is Wendell Christian, your host for today's program. Today we'll be talking about a woman of substance, the life and times of Alberta Christian, born June 12, 1929, on the British West Indian colony of Dominica. We will listen to her talk about the war years and raising children, and work as a manager of the Workshop for the Blind. We'll hear her daughter, co-author Esther Christian. We'll hear her grandchildren, Samora, McConan, and Britt Christian. It'll be a fascinating interview that will teach much. Take a listen. Well, thank you very much, Mrs. Christian, or should I call you Mom?
Definitely.
Because you're my mother, you're the mother of 7 of us. The first, of course, was Crystalline, who's no longer with us, Dr. Wells of Christian. Your first son, who's no longer with us. Your first daughter, of course, was Crystalline. And you had Lawson Christian, our brother. Then Samuel Christian, Dr. Samuel Christian, and then you had Esther Christian. Then, of course, Hildreth Christian. I came after Samuel. I was the 5th child. Esther was the 6th, and Hildreth Theresa was the 7th. So what was it like raising 7 children on an island colony of Britain, now known as the Commonwealth of Dominica? What was that like? That wasn't easy, was it?
It was not easy, but it was a compelled down preparation and benefit of doing the best you can from the Almighty.
The Almighty Father. So you're saying to me...
Because no matter how many, but He was prepared for you.
Yes, yes.
And let me tell you, in fact, I had, as I said, a member of 7. That was 4 boys, 3 girls. And the youngest boy is the biggest of all. Is it true?
Well, I hope it's true. I hope it's not because I had all the food.
No, you were the biggest. Well. You know, at least not only mental, is physical. You are the biggest boy.
Well,
you are the 4th one.
Yes, yes.
So that's it.
Well, I think that had to do with the fact that maybe by the time I came along, I know that Dad was working and you were now working, and you had more ability to provide. And I guess the folks who came earlier had maybe a little more difficult time, and the folks who came later, they were able to benefit from your relative prosperity. Would you not say?
For sure, definitely. And you know how, right now, if we are in a joke and so, what I would say, you get all the leftovers. You are the biggest boy.
Well, that's nice to know. But let's go back a
anyway.
little bit. I want to thank you, though, for taking the time to speak with Carib Nation. We wanted to do this interview because we thought it was important for us to hear from an ordinary Caribbean woman who, with limited means, did much and was able to educate her children and discipline them and have them make a contribution to society. So that's what we're going to talk about. You were born in 1929 in St. Joseph Village, and that's on the west coast of Dominica. Is that correct?
Right.
Tell us the name of your mother and tell us the name of your father.
Oh, yes. My mother's name was Virginia. My father's name was Aaron. Aaron John Baptist, Virginia. It was
Her
a
first
mother.
name. What was her maiden name, meaning before she got married to your husband? Was she Austri, Virginia Austri?
She's Virginia Austria.
So you're related to the Austries from Castle Bruce?
Oh, yes.
Yes, and your father was from Daly Seas.
That's right.
What was his job in those days when most of the land was owned by big plantations?
Yes. And besides that, he was a woodman that he would...
He was a wood sawyer?
He was a wood sawyer.
Yes.
And he was a man that could build his own buildings.
So he was a construction engineer in his own way?
Oh, yes. He was a wonderful one.
But when you were born at the estate at Cocoa Center in the Lai Valley, is that right?
Yes, not at the Cocoa Center, but the national name of it was...
You're in the Lai Valley?
Lai Valley, and that's where I was born. And by the way, it was a day of terrible, what you call, not volcano,
Storms.
storm.
We get a lot of storms on Dominica.
That was a stormy day.
Yeah, but you survived.
Oh, yes, survived.
Tell us about your brothers and sisters. How many brothers did you have?
Well, my father was married, his first wife. He had 2 boys and 2 girls.
Give us their names if you remember.
One of the boys was Simon, the other one was Thomas, John Baptist. And the 2 girls, one was Maria, the other one was Margarita. Girls.
Outstanding. And in your family, that is between your father and your mother?
That's from my mother, was Alberta and Geraldine.
That's right. So Geraldine and Alberta came from the union between Aaron, John Baptist, and Virginia Austri. And you had brothers Ambrose, John Baptist,
Yes.
Washington, John Baptist, they call him Jerry.
Jerry.
And the last one was Johnson.
Good.
Right?
Very good.
Now, these 3 brothers went to England after the war, is that right?
Yes.
And they stayed there,
They stayed there.
had children there,
Exactly. And they came
back to visit.
back on a friend
Yes.
and, and returned.
They were like many West Indians who after the war went up to England to help rebuild England, which had been, of course, devastated by the German bombing
Exactly.
during the Blitz. Is that right?
That's true, yes.
Yes, yes. And 2 of your brothers, that is Ambrose John Baptist and Johnson, worked in the mines in Nottinghamshire
Right.
with the National Union of Mine Workers. Is that right?
You're right. Yes.
And you actually went down into the mine yourself, didn't
Yes,
you?
I did.
How far down did you go?
Oh, it was depth down. You have to go down on a step down to the basement. And of course, it was, I mean, we don't know about these things, but when you come to visit there, you get so excited,
Yes.
Yes. But that is something you'd like to do.
Yes.
When you have a time to go overseas to some places and you want to get to see the place where your father, mother, brother, sister, whoever the person is, takes you to see where you were working.
Absolutely. Now,
And then things we don't have.
in Dominica, we don't have mines. Now, let me say this. It's very important for us. Because now you're next, in fact, 2 days from now, you'll be 89 years old.
Surely.
Because you were born on June 12th,
1929.
1929. And you went through many things.
Oh, many places.
Tell us about your early days and the time of World War II, the war days. Tell us about World War II, how it affected you.
World War II, I can remember I was at school at that time. And I was a very good and a strong student in this area. And I can remember we were all over the place. Always, we don't know much. We did not even have this opportunity as we have now, telephone, televisions, and we could see and everything. But when we get something like a boat, and now we can go through a boat and go through different places and flights, television, is all these things compressed. But during this time of the war, we did not know much.
How did you get the news?
We could get the news from the headmaster. At that time, he had not only telephone, but he had this
a radio. Did he have a
radio and so forth, and he would get all these informations overnight, and next day he would come to the school and he will speak to us about what took place in England or in Germany or, and these places where whatever is taking place.
So tell us about, by that time you remember the 4-H club. Tell us about the 4-H club.
Oh, the 4-H club is one we always call, help me sometimes.
The 4-H's stands for?
Health, head, heart, and
hands.
Sometimes right now I think I am saying up to a while ago my voice and my heart, my head is going down, down, down. But I find it was a pleasure when people used to ask me, up to this very moment, I like my little vegetable garden. Even if it's in a box, a square box that will be about 4 by 4, 5, 6, just a box. What do you think I do? Right now I have shown my daughter Esther. If you go now, you'll see a box. You put soil in it and you plant your vegetables. You can get your lettuce, you can get the cabbage, you can get all these little things like chive, lettuce. You have different.
You've made potatoes and pumpkins and okras and so on.
Yes.
So you're saying they taught you these things in the 4-H club.
That's right, and I keep it on up to this day, and I'm passing it on to my children. Esther is taking over.
So you're saying that during the war, when you were at elementary school in Dominica, you had a 4-H club?
Sure.
You also had a women's institute?
I love these things.
And why were those things important? Can you tell us how they shaped your life?
Well, it is so important to me, and we have been talking to some of us as a group, because I like it. You can afford to help yourself in planting your vegetables, tomato, potatoes, lettuce, cabbages, and carrots, and all these things is helping you. If you don't have a penny to go to the market, when you have your little cents, put them together.
So that's self-reliance. So you're saying, how important is that for the young people today to know, to be part of such organizations? How important is that?
It is very important to know that it is from your foundation to help. If you are a mother and you have children, you may have short money in your hands, but you can use it to make it last and grow. You may have 4 or 5 children to maintain, but if you plant your little vegetables, it is just close, but it is strong.
Okay, let me ask you this. Tell us about when the Germans, for instance, the war was on. How difficult was it for you to get food, and what did you have to do to survive on the island? Give us, those who were not born in those days, tell us what happened.
We had to help ourselves. Things like flour, like me, you make bread with. We could not get sugar to sweeten our whatever we make, cake or bread or whatever. We had to help ourselves.
What did you use to make the sugar? How did you make sugar in the absence of the import?
And we used to use sugar cane. And we had our own build industry to squeeze the juice of the cane. I can tell you right now how it was built. There would be a tree in your area. You shape up a hole like the oven in which we were baking bread. You would shape it and use a piece of the arm of the same tree as a handle.
Squeeze.
And squeeze out sugar cane tree. A cane tree is a long thing like a bamboo shape.
It's like a grass along. Yeah,
right.
Yes.
And I can tell you, because my daddy used to get this, clean it up, we peel off the skin off, you squeeze it, he build up a shape of a face you can see through the tree, and then you can put a handle like an arm length and put the cane
beneath
in between.
It, and then you
like you put a spoonful to your child's mouth and then squeeze it out. The juice is formed, you boil it over, and it frame up so sweet.
That's what you call molasses.
Honey,
Molasses. Tell us about, in the absence of flour from overseas, which flour? What would you use to make flour? Was it the breadfruit and so on? Explain to the audience.
Breadfruit. It could be from bananas, it could be from breadfruit, but you shape it. There is another one they call cassava, and you have to get fine one. Farine.
So you would use those as alternatives to the imported wheat?
Yes. So this is where I say God has provided, and it strengthens us. It doesn't have to go through all this fermenting and rebuilding, coming to be better and better, and it comes into us naturally strong, growing up even better, stronger, mentally better, strengthening every pore. And as I'm saying, by the grace of God, He has planted in our brain something we can do to save our lives.
So when you could not get the wheat flour, you used the bananas, the plantains, the dasheen, the yams, the breadfruit to make the flour. When you could not get the sugar, you used the sugar cane, you squeezed it, you made the juice, the molasses.
Thank God.
When you could not get the imported cloth to make clothing, what did you do? Where did you get the cloth from? Tell us.
Oh boy, let me tell you. There is a material they put together, they sew it up, make out a size of a bag.
Is that the flour
bag? This flour bag, after the use of the flour, it is being clean, washed. You have to bleach it. And I could see my mother was teaching me that. Clean it up, wash it with soap and water, bleach it out. When I say bleach it, it means you open it under the hot sunshine, you dash water on it, wet it up, and all the stains that is printed there is cleaned out. And it means stain come out, then you are white as snow, very clean. And if you want to have a different color, like blue, red, white, black, you can print it on again, and you can get out of a cloth, white cloth, you can get a black cloth, you can get a red cloth, it can be blue, it can be any color.
So you
Why you do that?
Yes.
Because you use any kind of piece of skin covered on the tree.
Yeah.
You get that piece of skin off the hardwood.
Oh, as a dye.
As a dye.
Okay, so you're saying that during the war, you were saying that the people had to use their intelligence
Yes.
to create the means to provide their own food, provide their own clothing.
Exactly.
Tell us, because we have to go to talk about other things momentarily.
Yes.
Tell us
Okay.
about the German submarine, the incident where the German submarine came up. Tell your listeners about that.
Yeah, but this is just boy. That was something, and I was a student at school at that time because our teacher would tell us.
What was his name? Was
that
that Mr. Geist?
This Mr. Gist came after the holiday, this war, but the teacher was Mr. James.
Mr. James. Ashley James?
Ashley James.
I see.
So, and he was living just next to the.
And so he's the father of Jean Finot Kane and his people.
Right.
Yes.
And he was attached to the church
Yes.
where the priest was. So when this one did not have, the other one have, so he could get one. He tried to get one. Oh, he did get it. I think it was coming from a close by island, like the Caribbean,
Yes.
and people could travel through boats, ordinary boats, and especially at night.
Yeah, but tell us about the submarine. Did you see the submarine?
Oh yes, the submarine was one day at school. Whilst we had a break at 11 o'clock, and we can take some quickly, doing some exercise, cricket or whatever, round we call that.
Rounders and so on.
Rounders. So, however, he came. Whilst we were out there, I was one of the students. They said, "Hey, look, you all come and see that. There is something on the sea."
Because your school was close to the sea.
Very close.
You
to the
lived
sea.
very close to the sea.
Yes, because
Okay.
the waves was running right to the shore, directly to the school.
Yes.
Anyway, what happened is that some boys was running, doing a little, cricket, and then when they hit the ball,
When they hit the ball, they saw the
it went on the sea,
and they saw the
and then they saw
the periscope.
That's right. And they come and see that boy, come and see that. There is that a submarine. It just disappeared under the water. Oh yes, the teacher, headmaster came and said, yes, take a deep.
He said he took a depth charge.
A depth charge.
But he really meant it was submerged.
So we were all laughing and we were, boy, come and see a boat, a depth charge. You take it, go, it disappear under the water.
Yes. But after that, the British government asked you to collect iron
Yes.
for the war effort, to make
Oh,
weapons
my
and
God.
to make aircraft. Tell us what you did to collect iron for the war
And
effort.
you know what? When the teacher tell us that, we went all over the place, all pieces of iron. This is what they said. Collect it because we will send it to England that they can get these leftovers. They can use it to build up materials to fight against the Germans. And it so happened when this boat disappeared, they said it is the submarine. And the teacher said, yes, it took a depth charge. And sometimes we laugh.
I think what you were saying was that the boat that came to take the iron was later sunk
Sunk, yes.
somewhere in the Caribbean.
That's right.
Because the Germans were sinking ships.
They were, and this is what happened. And we went, I can tell you, I did. I went to this man,
Mr. MacPitt,
Mac Pitt.
The blacksmith.
He was, how would you call that?
blacksmith.
The blacksmith. And at that time, if you had a horse, they would
The
make-
hooves, you can put the
Very
shoe-
good.
the horseshoes.
You
under
remember
the
what I'm
hooves.
saying
Yeah.
to you all, telling you all about these things very small.
Well, I know, Mother, that because of your age, sometimes you forget, and that's
Yeah.
why I'm trying to remind you.
Yes,
Because
yes.
you told us the stories that when the Germans also came to Layu and were eating the grapefruits.
And they saw the coconut trees and they find they wanted something, and anybody would offer them. And do you know that some of them, they were so bold, they said, look, that tree boy, we can get some, but we wouldn't touch it. But they helped them.
So you actually helped the Germans
We
sail.
did not know who they were.
But they were
did
not speaking
tell us
English.
no, but they did not tell us they were Germans. But the teacher will tell us next day that they were Germans.
And is it for that reason because the Germans were all over the islands in the U-boats that the British later brought the different
things from us.
The bases were set up in Barbados, St. Lucia, Trinidad. The U.S. base is Antigua.
Yes.
And of course, your husband after the war was Wendell Christian.
Yes.
Our father, and he served in the British Army with your brother.
Yes.
Your brother and our father served together.
Right.
And he was in the army. I'm going to get into that in a little bit, but tell me what attracted you to our father. What can you tell us about him and his camera and the way he talked, the way he dressed?
Well, he was there because, the Caribbean was they were open to come and sign in to be, how do you call them?
Soldier.
A soldier.
Yes. So he was in the army.
Yeah. And I had a brother there, my eldest brother.
Was that Nestor?
Nestor, yes.
John Baptist?
John Baptist.
He passed away.
That's right.
But let me ask you, after the war, you met our father, not before.
After.
And what about him impressed you to cause you to fall in love with him?
Because he met my brother, my eldest brother. They were in the same group.
In the same company?
Company when they
C
went.
Company, Windward Islands Battalion.
That's right.
British Army.
Where the people was enumerated to one of the islands or another one, or it was in St. Lucia.
He was in St. Lucia.
Okay.
So he brought him back to the home? Is that what it was? Or did he come to your home because his sister Daisy lived with you?
Well, that's right. And that was my first job too. I was with the government as working
Telephone
operator. I was a member, telephone operator when I left school.
I see.
So, and his sister, she died. So
Daisy. Auntie Daisy, yeah.
And she came to our district and we were working together. So she had been a good friend of mine and she lived with us. By the time when the brother came, everything was over, she had already been, or she was transformed to another place, district. And that's the time she knows about me because we live together, we work together, and get the brother by the time when things were over.
The war was over, he came.
He came.
And what did you first see? Give us your impression of him.
He joined.
Give us your impression of him.
He was sent to the police force.
Yes.
So one of my brothers, Simon, was another brother of my father. He too was in the police force.
Ah, I see.
So they met. But when he was transferred to the village where I was, and his sister was one of us. Yeah. She was a member of our family, call it that way. So it came in like he was transformed to the same village, parish, St. Joseph, where I was.
And what impressed you about him? Was there anything in particular you remember?
Well, he heard about me, connected with his family, his last sister. We just mentioned.
I thought you said before when we were growing up that he went around the village taking pictures of children and different people, and that was something that you're not seeing.
Oh yes, it was not common here, but in St. Lucia, or where they were together. He never thought he would meet a person, my brother's sister, my brother, that is
Nestor.
Yeah. They were together in the same group. They met.
That's right.
In St. Lucia.
Let's talk a little bit about your first child. With when you got with our father Wendell Christian, your first child. What was her name?
So,
Crystalline.
Crystalline.
She was not well. She was developmentally disabled. Is that right?
So, yes.
And would you say that developmental disability that she had caused you to be more sensitive to people in a similar circumstance?
Very much.
So when the opportunity came for you to be a nurse, but before that a Red Cross, would you say that sensitivity that you had caring for a disabled child helped you to be more sympathetic to other people?
Oh, definitely.
So tell us about the early days of the Red Cross and your time as a nurse?
Well, I had been a nurse as a member of voluntary. My first, it is such a thing that when you like something, you can do anything to, you don't care about yourself, but to care about the person you want to help. We were watching cricket, and when this boy had been one student with my collision with my son,
Yes.
and he got himself into an accident.
Yes. And you were there,
And
right?
immediately, that was my first,
You jumped in and you took care.
Oh, yes. Until I had to call, come on, and take a car. They took me to
So
the
you had training in first aid.
I did.
You had a bag with mercurochrome,
Everything.
syringe, iodex,
Forceps.
iodine,
Everything.
forceps, bandages,
Oh, man.
and you had a uniform.
People never knew.
Is that the uniform here?
Exactly.
How proud you look in that
People,
picture.
and you can see the stamp.
The Red Cross,
The Red Cross.
on your breast. So tell us about that. How did that prepare you for your later work at the mental home?
Well, I don't know, but I have to say thank God, because we don't know what is coming, but what is your mental ability given by the Lord that directs you to things how it happens. We have to wonder how, but it's the power of the Lord. And then
So that was the St. Luke's. You worked at the St. Luke's mental home first,
Yes.
taking care of mentally ill patients. And then later, that's when the opportunity came, when H.L. Christian came and mentioned to you, that's your brother-in-law, the minister, he wasn't the minister then, he was with social welfare, that there may be an opportunity for training as a teacher at the workshop for the blind.
Oh, yes.
And you were trained by a British voluntary service officer, Miss Pointer, right?
It's pointed.
And she taught you how to braid the straw, create the baskets and hampers, and then she taught you how to train the blind.
That's right.
Give us some of the names of the blind workers of those days.
Well, they have...
You had Therilyn.
They have Therilyn. They have Mary. They had
Pauletta,
Pauletta,
Rosamond,
Rosamond. And
Therilina,
Therilina, yes. And Mary, this one.
you had Starrett Francois.
Oh, yes, Starrett Francois.
The pianist. He was like Ray Charles. He was blind, but he could play the piano.
And became famous in a group.
The Gaylord's Power Union.
Gaylord's Power Union. And that was so powerful. And then he was sent over to, not he was sent, but
He went to
was
England.
taken away to England.
But you took the blind onto the stage at the St. Gerard's Hall to do a play of a kind that nobody had ever seen in Dominica.
Never. Over the Caribbean, because even that lady came from England and said, not even in England. Where I got that? I said, I don't know, but it came into my mind what I feel I can do. When I tried to bless those children and speak to them, I said, you know what? We are going to build a place. There's a group.
So at that time, stop. At that time, you did not have a place. You did not have a workshop. You were using a room at the Dominica Infirmary in Pottersville. I remember that.
Sure.
So you were raising funds with the Lions Club, George Gabriel and Hannah Raful,
Yes.
to build your own headquarters for the workshop of the blind.
Exactly.
But you were not willing to accept money from the Lions only. You were willing to work to raise your own funds. And that's the concert that you did at the St. Gerard's Hall and the Goodwill Parish Hall. I remember that as a child.
That is, you're right.
So you were now bringing your own talent in the concert to raise funds. Is that right?
You are right. I was thinking. I went to bed, but I could go on all night. This is something I have to do. I decided what I can do is to get them to practice right there and have my children, especially my 4 boys, all of you. He was the last boy, but he was there. And you never think of what people have to say. He was hooked.
I would
with
hold
one
them.
of the boys,
We would hold them
a blind one,
And
and walk with him.
onto the stage. And we could not be concerned about people casting remarks, because in those days, people were not as educated and as compassionate as they are today. People were very prejudiced against those who were blind or otherwise developmentally disabled. Is that right?
You're right.
What would they say?
And
Tell me some of the things they
And
would say.
they would say, I'm wicked. Mrs. Christian, you taking your children and putting them with a blind person? I said, well, they are there. I put them to help them. They will take them to anywhere they would like to go. I say, you are taking this one, take him home. Take this one, take him to the workshop. And you all would be happy to go around with them. We don't know that. But people come over to me. Oh, Mrs. Christian, you have your children walking with blind people? I say, how dear, what is wrong? And I'm so happy to know they can do that. And they are loving. I had one man come from how many miles away, the fellow, and stayed at home 2 solid weeks.
From Martinique, I believe. From Martinique. Was he the Martinican gentleman? The blind?
He was Martinique before.
French.
Yes. Right.
I want to say pause for a moment, because sometimes when people see your success with your children or your personal success, they may not know what it is you did to get to where you are. Are you saying to me that God helps those who help themselves, and that there is blessings to be given to those who help others? Is that the moral of the story here?
It is.
Explain for me, please.
You know why? When I heard of that boy, Starrett Francois,
And that's a pianist, the
that
blind
is,
pianist.
he was a fella I heard of. And I just tried to get him from a distance away from where we live.
He was in La Plaine, was he?
He was not in La Plaine. Down this area, going down.
In the east?
Yes.
Rivière Syrique or?
No. Oh, anyway, his father, I think, I understood this. Whoever his mother was from. He's a Dominican, but the father was from
Martinique, Guadeloupe? One of the French islands.
French, yeah.
Dominique is between 2 French islands.
That's right.
Martinique to the south
So
and Guadeloupe to the north.
when I heard that he was from there, and then I said, well, I was trying to get him, and they told me they sent him to Trinidad.
That's where there's a blind school where you could learn Braille.
Right.
To read Braille, which is a method of reading with your hands.
And then there were 2 sisters.
Pauletta,
And
Rosamond?
not Rosamond, Pauletta.
Sylvanie, Prosper. From
What
La
else,
Plaine,
sisters?
yes, Prosper.
And they had sent them over there.
To Trinidad as
And
well.
then this is where they can read and write Braille.
Braille, yeah.
And one of the sisters was good in the piano too.
I think that was Pauletta or
Pauletta.
Sylvanie, yes.
Pauletta.
Yes.
And then the guy, the fellow,
Was also good in
was also
piano.
good.
Yes.
And then when I bring him up, he stayed at my home 2 weeks because I did not make any, conversation with the government, but I would have to step it out.
Yes. So you were able to build a concert
I was the
troupe,
one.
and you also had them to dress in the uniform.
Uniform of the
And so on.
national
Yes.
uniform.
So at this point in time, we're going to take a break so we can have the others come in and speak to you about other aspects of your life.
Right.
Thank you. Mr. Christian, it's good to be with you, my co-author with Alberta Christian and a woman of substance. Tell us a little bit about yourself. You're Alberta Christian and Wendell Christian's sixth child. Tell us a little bit about your where you were born and your education.
I was born in the island of Dominica, educated through high school in Dominica, attended the convent high school. Prior to that, attended the Goodwill Junior High School, and started off at mixed infant school, which interestingly was principaled by my aunt, Floss Christian. After, upon graduating...
You mean Auntie Floss, we call her?
Yeah, Auntie Floss. Upon graduating from high school, did some work with the social welfare division, working in particular with the Operation Youthquake, which was an organization working with juvenile delinquent boys, trying to prevent them, from going straight to the prisons, having something to.
Yes. Was Operation Youthquake before you went to the University of West Indies in Jamaica, or after you went to the University of West Indies in Jamaica?
It was actually before, before.
So what did you study at the University of West Indies in Jamaica?
I actually started out studying social welfare. A major in social welfare. Had actually a certificate in social welfare
From?
The University of West Indies in Mona, Jamaica.
Mona, Jamaica. You like Jamaica?
Oh, I love Jamaica. Jamaica
Which
is
is
my
more
second
beautiful,
home.
Jamaica or Dominica? We won't tell Mr. We won't tell Mr. Singh that's
I tell
what you
individuals, Jamaica to me has the best of the mountains and the beaches like you have in Barbados. I think it's combined. I think that's one of the things I appreciate. But of course, as a Dominican girl, my island comes first, but I love Jamaica, man.
Yeah, Jamaica is a
True
beautiful
that.
country, and
Yeah.
Jamaicans are beautiful people.
Yes.
In fact, all West Indians are, I must say. But having said that, you then left social welfare and you came to the University of the District of Columbia in D.C.
Correct.
What did you study
And
there?
initially I started out with social welfare, and then I realized, it was going to be looking at one of the greatest needs of our community, and I determined then it was going to be in the financial area. So I, as a sophomore at University of District of Columbia, I actually switched my major to accounting. So I graduated in accounting, then went on to get my certified public accountancy.
Designation? So you're a CPA now?
Yes, I am a CPA.
Did you study after that anywhere else?
Yes, after spending a number of years as an auditor, with starting out with Deloitte Touche and then Blue Cross and Blue Shield, and also doing a little stint as a bank auditor with then Citizens Bank of Washington and Maryland, I then returned back to Johns Hopkins University, where I mastered in applied behavioral science. And I know it's a bit of a left brain, right brain type of thing, but the social sciences are always near and dear to my heart, and so it was definitely something I needed to do. After graduating with that master's, I went on to work as an organizational development consultant, actually managed that department for the Children's National Medical Center, and then eventually went on to work at Georgetown University Hospital.
Outstanding. So you worked at National Children's Medical Center in DC, then Georgetown. So education then was very important to you. How do you think that being the daughter of Alberta Christian shaped your approach to education and provided you with the requisite discipline to succeed in your professional pursuits?
Well, education was always championed within our home, as you're familiar with. One of the most joyous memories I have actually is in my elementary school days, after we would leave at the ending of school, going to visit our dad.
What do you mean in the afternoon?
In the afternoon.
You'd have afternoon lessons.
Exactly.
In the lecture hall of the Dominica Fire Service.
Exactly, and Dad would be the instructor, where he'd review our exercises that we had done for that day and work.
Reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Exactly.
And our treat was tip-top cheese, Crick's crackers, and condensed milk.
And don't
Ice
forget,
milk.
and don't forget sometimes the squash, lime
Lime
juice.
squash.
Yes.
And I think I came across a diary from 1967 where Dad writes, after having given us some afternoon lessons, he says, "Esther is very bright, but Gabriel, I believe, is a dunce." Tell us about the brothers before we talk about the book for a moment.
So we have, of course, my eldest brother, Dr. Wendell Christian, who was the island's first veterinarian scientist.
He was the first black person in Dominica to become a veterinary doctor.
Exactly.
Before that, there were white people from England, Australia. Dr.
Right.
Datcher was an Englishman from Cambridge,
Correct.
Cambridge University.
Correct.
Or, of course, from India. We had an Indian veterinary doctor, Dr. Mithian, I remember.
Yeah, yeah. And then we had Wendell Christian, who is a civil engineer. And I remember both Wendell and Wellsworth doing a project where they actually built a radio. So trash, it was perhaps like about, what was that,
11, 12
years
14,
old.
yeah.
And I mean, I was just fascinated at the ability to create.
And it worked, the radio worked.
Yes. So that was the type of environment. And then, of course, we
I
had-
remember, stop you there, it's funny as you said that, I remember they used the pipe, the steel pipe, that came out of the back of the bathroom
Right.
as the area
Right,
for the
exactly. Here you go. Here you go. And then we had Dr. Samuel Christian, who, of course, growing up with Sam, one just knew he would end up in medicine because one of the
things he would do, he would be catching lizards and dissecting
Exactly.
them, opening the lizards,
Yeah.
and then stitching them back with thread and needle from mom's sewing machine.
So he had a natural inclination for surgery already, and so it was not surprising that he eventually became a general surgeon.
Yes. He went to Howard University here in Washington.
Exactly.
In fact, it was Sam coming to Washington to Howard University Medical School
Yes, that kind
that
of
opened the way for me, and then I went to University of DC, and that opened the door for you.
Right.
And maybe that's a good time to, before we get to talk about the book, to talk about our sister,
Yes. Yes.
because then she went to University of DC as well.
Mhm.
And Hildreth is our last sister, Hildreth Teresa Christian.
That's
We
right.
called her at home Little Hill. Hildreth, welcome.
Thank you.
It's good to have you on Carib Nation Television, where we're here to talk about a woman of substance and what it was like to grow up in a home that was administered, was led by Alberta Christian and her husband, or deceased father, Wendell Christian. Where did you study in Dominica and lived in the United States? You don't mind telling us?
Yes, in Dominica, I attended the Goodwill Junior High School, and after that, I went to the Dominica Grammar School.
And we'll ask you about the Goodwill Junior High School a little bit because it's a fascinating story because they said you're too young to attend. And
Yes.
there was something in that experience that showed you the caliber of your mother. But before we get to that story, tell us where you went after the Dominica Grammar School. What did you do?
After the Dominica Grammar School, I attended the Sixth Form College, and then from there I did some work with the Dominica Social Security before I left for America to attend the University of the District of Columbia.
Why did you go to the University of the District of Columbia like that?
Well, before me, my sister Esther, and before her, my brother Gabriel, both attended the University of the District of Columbia, so they had good things to say about it, and I decided to go there. Previously, I spent a semester at the University of Delaware because my brother Sam was a resident there, and Delaware was great. It was quite an experience, but I was happy to come to Maryland because I wasn't yet acclimatized, and I thought that Maryland would be really nice, and it was fun, you know, for me to be with my brother and sister. They had a lot to teach me about how to get to Washington, D.C., where the school was located, how to take the subway and the bus and back, and it was a really good experience, and they paved the way for me. They also, at that time, owned their own home, so I was able to stay with them and not have to pay any fees for boarding. So it was really a really great experience. I also got involved with the Caribbean community there because there was a strong presence at the University of the District of Columbia.
Outstanding. And you were also a volleyball captain or volleyball player?
Well, I was not a captain, but I did get a scholarship to play volleyball for the school, and that was a very interesting experience. We not only had to maintain good grades, but you know, we had to practice and also perform well, and it was quite, you know, an enjoyable experience.
I want to compliment you because I think of all of us, you're the only one who ever got a scholarship for sports.
Yeah.
You know, but what did you study at the university?
At University of the District of Columbia, I ended up majoring in environmental science with a minor in marine biology. I actually ended up with an associate's in that program and a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Science.
And you worked on the, I know you did an expedition with NOAA in the
Yes,
Atlantic.
I was fortunate to have received internships with NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. I did a program in the Gulf of Mexico and another off the coast of Maine. Basically, I was on a trawler for over 10 days. We did catches where we would examine fish and take from their brains otoliths, which is like a bony structure where you can determine the age of fish. And we did studies on them. And then we did like some catch and release, and we wrote papers afterwards. So that was, you know, something I'm really happy that I got to experience while there at the university.
You also did a study on the Maryland blue crab, didn't you?
Yes, I did perform a study. That was through an internship that I received, and I went to the College of William and Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia, and spent 3 weeks, and my research was on the blue crab. So I had to go ahead and study the crab at different stages of life and the environment, and afterwards write a paper and present it to the other students who were there at the intern program.
Before going more into your academic program, tell us how your education in Dominica, your home upbringing, provided the basis for your success in your academic endeavors.
From an early age, my mom, Mrs. Christian, and my dad, Wendell Christian, taught me at home before I actually attended school. So my mom taught me to write my name and to read even before going to school. And my dad taught me arithmetic, basic math. I would be at the fire station in the afternoons, and that's where he would teach, you know, and I also got to have ice milk and and Ritz and crackers and tip-top cheese as a snack. And so I grew up in a home where education was very important. Being the youngest, I saw that, you know, my siblings excelled at school, and that taught me that it was important. You know, I learned to relish reading. Some of my favorite authors included Enid Blyton, and she's a British author which wrote a lot of children's stories. And I would collect the books. I enjoyed reading. It was
I think you're also an aficionado of Marvel Comics.
Yes.
Archie and Veronica and Moose.
That's right. I love the
Jughead.
Archie comic books. Also, I read some Commandos that my brother Gabe enjoyed reading. And so reading, we had a little library. We had Encyclopedia Britannica there. And we also had a fascinating book about bizarre stories and
Yes.
Yes.
The Guinness Book of World. Strange facts, amazing but true.
yes, amazing
About
but true.
Mary Celeste, about
Yes.
Caspar Hauser, the
some-
coffins that
yeah.
moved in Barbados.
Yeah, a lot of paranormal
the
activity.
what you call spontaneous combustion.
Yes,
People who just
yes.
explode.
Right.
You know,
And so,
ghost stories
it was
and so on.
fascinating.
Yes.
And so I enjoyed reading. When I went to elementary school, I don't recall, doing a lot of homework in elementary school.
Do you want to tell us the story of the bench?
Okay,
Do you
yes.
want to read that, because I think that's one of the most powerful stories in the book.
So it's My New Bench, and this story is going to show how important it was for my mom that we did well at school and and received a good education, and that was the very first time that I realized how important it was to go to school, and how important it was for my mom that I attend school. So My New Bench, and I wrote this story. It says, when I was a young child, about 2 to 4 years old, I did not go to kindergarten. My mother, Ma Christian, as she was commonly known, took me to work with her. She was the manager of the workshop for the blind, and I sat in her office where she taught me to read and write. On the island, we had a light blue exercise book, I'm sure you recall that, with the map of Dominica on the front cover. There were 10 parishes on the island, and it was outlined on the map. Later, while at school, what we called primary school, we would draw on that map, and we made the north of the island into a face, that's the area around Portsmouth, and the south of the island, we made it into a boot. So Dominica looked like a little man with a hump. And my mother would cut the exercise book in half, and she would give it to me with half of a pencil. The little pencil fit my little hands perfectly, and the half of the exercise book was just my size. I would practice my letters, and I would practice printing my name, and I learned to read from a book called Percy the Chick.
Percy the Chick was produced by Michael Teachers College in Jamaica.
Okay, yes, it was written by someone from the Caribbean. When I was almost 5, I was enrolled at primary school at the Goodwill Junior High School. Now, this school we could see from our bedroom window. It was fairly close. The school was close to our house, and we could see the school, as I said, from our bedroom window. There was a problem during registration because I had not gone to kindergarten. My parents taught me everything I needed to know before going. And also because I was born in October and school started in September, I was still 4 at the time. My mother told the principal that I could read and write, and that I was ready for primary school. Then they also mentioned that there was a problem with overcrowding, and that even if they admitted me, there would be no place to sit. My mother said that was not a problem. She was determined that I start school, and that I already had the skills necessary to start school. So she told the principal that she would bring in a bench that I could sit on. My mother had a carpenter build me a bench. I was excited that I would have my own bench at school and that I would get to go to school. My bench was brought in the following week. The classroom was packed. The bench was placed in the back, and I sat there with at least 6 other children. By the end of the day, I was almost off the bench. When I got home, I told my mother that I was being pushed off the bench that she got me for school. The next day, my mother went to the classroom and spoke with my teacher. She asked the teacher to please see to it that I have a place to sit on the bench. The teacher hastily went to the bench and asked the children to move over so that I could sit. get up, she said. Tell your mother to bring a bench for you if you want to sit down. She remarked to the other kids. I had no problem sitting on the bench after that. When I moved to another class, the bench stayed behind. I sometimes think, and I have always thought after that, how happy I was that other children got a place to sit at school, and that my mother was so concerned about my education that she got a bench made so that I could attend school.
Oh, wonderful. That's just a wonderful story that speaks to the determination. She was not willing to depend on others or the government to provide. She
Correct.
took in front, as they say, she was proactive, not reactive, and she went and got a carpenter to build a bench so you could attend school. And my hope is that what story, what message do you believe that should convey to our listeners with regard to their children and their upbringing?
Well, first and foremost, parents should be concerned about their kids' education. They should encourage them as much as possible from a very young age. They should read to them and encourage them to read. They should get them library cards and take them to the library. They should buy books for them, not just toys, but give them the opportunity to experience the joy of reading, because there are lots of adventures, and within books are magical. And there's so much to learn from books. So they should have lots of books in the home for the kids. And they should encourage them and see to it that they read books. And also let them know it's important to work hard at school, to do their homework, and to study. Because by doing so, you become someone who is, informed. And, by doing well at school, then you're able to do well when you leave school.
Okay. I'm very, very happy that you explained that. Let's round up a little bit on your postgraduate work with nuclear waste management and environment, the Maryland Department of Transportation, Environmental Impact Studies.
Yes, so after, my studies, I became an environmental analyst. And I worked with the Maryland Department of Transportation. At first, it was with the State Highway Administration. And there we did environmental impact statements, or EIS documents. Basically, when the state planned on doing a project, we had to do field studies to make sure that there was no adverse impacts to the environment. And if there were, like for instance, if trees had to be cut down or any stream was impacted, we had to make sure that we did remediation. And so I worked in the planning division. And in the planning division, as I said, we did the field work, we took photographs, we determined that if there was an impact, what would we do to remediate that impact? Whether it would be tree plantings or stormwater management, or whether there were any other things that we could do as far as helping the stream, maintaining the stream by putting, the gabion baskets, to
That's
prevent,
like retaining devices.
yes, to prevent
Slippage
stream
of
erosion.
yes.
Exactly. And we did lots of documents, and then those documents would be as part of the planning for whatever project that we were working on.
Outstanding. And we know we've had your challenges because you did work with nuclear waste before Maryland.
Well, I did some, before the state of Maryland, I had different jobs with different private organizations where we would do asbestos testing and, different soil sample testing for areas where there were what you call underground storage tanks. And with the underground storage tanks, sometimes you have spillage and you have soil contamination from the oil from the tanks. And so these would have to be cleaned up. And again, I would have to write documents going ahead to outline what ways that area could be remediated.
So we are coming to the end of this interview. We are very proud of your effort. I know you started this book in 1990 when you're here to take care of our oldest brother, your first boy, Dr. Wendell Christian, was here for a heart-lung transplant. Unfortunately, he perished on June 9th, 1990 without that transplant being done. But while you were taking care of him, while he would be sleeping, you go to my computer in the basement that I bought for my classes at Georgetown University Law Center, and you started writing this manuscript. And you did about 50 pages. And Esther later found those 50 pages about 5 years ago and decided to finish it. Any final words about the importance of this book, not just to our family, but to Dominicans, West Indians, and the world? How important do you think was this project?
That is a great one. It is something that is important because we can never stop learning. And there are many people that wish to get this free, that they can copy it. So therefore, if this can be placed, it can go on and on and on. Because there is generation from generation from generation. So this is, in that year, what is it now?
2018?
28.
And it can go on and on, doing even better and better. And this is what it is all, from the foundation of a baby born, to grow up to be a man and a woman, to reach to that upright. It's just like planting, putting a little bead, a little grain in the soil. It's a seed, and it grows up a tree. And this is our fields from that tree. This is what we have to eat to grow. And we grow up from children, from babies, children running upon the education, and common headmaster as a president of a country. So there's so many little things. Just think about that. And I was just telling my daughter about a while ago, my granddaughter, about somebody and her daughter. And when I opened my door in the morning, I was about to prepare to go to Mass. And who will call me? My first child, my daughter, but she was slow back, whatever she was, but she was smart. Mommy. Hello, Christo? You wake up? Yes. You going to Mass? Let's go. I say, yes, thank you. But she was slow, but God bless her.
So
anyway, why I'm saying that is how things have to grow. If it goes down, it is finished. It's dead. But remember, people don't think that way. Like a lady who came to me she didn't come to me, but the daughter came to sit down on that porch at the dealing. And then when I opened, I see her, I was stunned, And I said, her mother, she's crying, her mother. I mean, she's a young person. She went somewhere. She came back too late at her home. She closed her out.
And you took care of her?
So, and a new lady coming to me and said, but you should not do that.
Yes.
It's your daughter. She should not do that. You speak to her, bring up, sit down, talk to her. And let her remember what she's doing is not the right thing to do. But you don't destroy your child. It's just like you have a tree. It has a mango. You throw it with a stone. And you pick it up to eat it. What it can do for you? It's not a good food because it's dirty. And apart from that, it's not ripe.
Yes.
So that is what you're doing with the child.
Yeah, so you're basically saying, and I think Hildreth would agree, that this book reflects your life of giving, of sharing, of educating, and having the faith in your Creator, that despite the shortcomings, you're able to, for instance, take one can of corned beef and stretch it to serve 9 by putting cucumbers and lettuce and watercress and so on. You had the mastery of home economics, and you put faith first, and you fostered the education of your children within an environment of discipline. Thank you very much, Ma. Thank you very much, Ms. Christian. And God bless you for helping with this book. Esther, at this point in time, I want you to just refer to a section, I think, that speaks to the spirit that our mother drilled us in, that spirit of indomitable self-assurance and self-confidence.
And that's on page 169. And I read, as I look back, I realize that the good choices I made in life helped me to achieve much. What were those good choices? I will try to itemize them for those who will read this memoir, especially who are those starting out in life. I would encourage them with the same poem I often would repeat to my children and many others that I've met along the way. Never look behind, boy, when you are on the way. Time enough for that, boy, on some future day. Though the road be long, boy, walk it with a will. Tramp, tramp, tramp along till you meet your dream. It's the essence of perseverance, the recognition that we will all face challenges. However, those challenges can be overcome when one surmounts faith, commitment to family, hard work, serving others, and the optimism as your guardians. However, I did not do it alone. I had help. The first to help me along the way to success were my parents and the community eventually I grew up in.
Outstanding. And so I think that captures it.
Yes.
I think we saw this effort as necessary, not simply to record a story of a mother and a particular family, but to shed some light in our community, especially now when we have issues of drug use and abuse, teenage pregnancies, broken homes, the absence of strong parental direction, kids not focused on their education, and the increasing crime, not only in Dominica, but in many parts of the Caribbean and other countries, the United States. We see the value of good parenting. And we want to thank God and all those who've made a contribution to the onward march of our civilization. In particular, our good friend and the co-author of many books on the Paul Casey Press, Dr. Irwin W. Andre, who did the foreword, yourself, of course, as co-author, and the other contributors like Hildred Teresa, Little Halo Christian, Dr. Samuel Christian, and Lawson Christian, all of whom played a part in putting this together. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I just am thinking of it that way.
What a mighty God we
Because
serve.
I am thinking this might be a complete, or at least very important for parents can take their children and do something beautiful, wonderful, powerful that can go all over the world.
And that is definitely our hope and our aspiration.
What
definitely.
a mighty, can I say that?
Please, sing.
Oh, yeah.
What a mighty God we serve. What a mighty God we serve. Angels bow before we. Heaven and God, heaven above. All
What a mighty God we serve. At least we do know
what
the
a
essence
mighty
of that.
God we
Serve.
Amen.
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 Amen. Thank you very much.
Hallelujah. Thank
Hallelujah.
you. Hallelujah.
And you know, it's so interesting, you know, before we went to bed, she would always, and our father too, encourage us to pray. And the prayer that he taught us, they would say the Father, or the Lord, or Father, you know, and have the Lord's Prayer, and they would close it with this little prayer. In our little bed we lie, Heavenly Father, hear our cry.
Right.
Lord, protect us,
Through this night.
And keep us
Keep
safe
us
till
till
morning.
morning light.
for Christ's sake.
Amen.
Thank you. here we have three of the grandchildren of Alberta Christian, the author of A Woman of Substance. To my right, Samora Dominica Christian. Samora, quickly tell us who your parents are, and where do you go to school, and what are you doing now?
So my parents are you and my mom, Joan Christian, and I go to UMES, University of Maryland, Eastern Shore. My major is human ecology. I study, and I also have a concentration in fashion merchandising. I take part in a lot of extracurriculars at school in terms of helping with modeling shows and makeup and I also have my own beauty, lifestyle, and fashion blog called 3M Media, and I also tie that into my Instagram as well on social media.
Of what importance is this book and so on to not only you as the granddaughter of Alberta Christian, but as someone of Caribbean American heritage?
So growing up, my parents made sure that my brother and I knew our origin, where we came from, the importance of knowing our legacy and our heritage and our culture. Knowing that I'm of Dominican descent is very important to me. It helps me with my self-identity journey, and identifying with something is something important to someone growing up as a young adult. You tend to get lost, so having that structure from an early age helped me with discipline and not being lost in that sense of myself. I always knew I had a debt to my parents and my home country that I had to, make them proud.
And any particular value systems you learned from your grandmother?
Discipline and hard work. Despite being a female, people think you're weak or you're strong or, you're feeble-minded. But even with her obstacles, like the time that she lived in, you're only supposed to do certain type of jobs or have a certain line of work, but she was someone that pushed barriers, and she was a beacon of volunteerism and a community leader along with my grandfather. And, she just set the tone for the grandchildren and her children for who they should be when they grow up.
Thank you very much, Samora. I would ask you to pass the mic on to Britt Ashley Christian. Britt, tell us a little bit about you. Who's your mom?
My mom is Teresa Hildreth Christian.
And she was with us a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and tell us where you're going to school right now.
I'm about to graduate from Sudbrook Magnet Middle School, which is a school that specializes in certain programs for kids to delve into.
And someone told me that you're an A student. Is that true?
Yes.
Indeed, the magnet schools take children who are, or students who are very high on the achievement, let's say, scale. Tell us about your grandmother, and you I guess have had a very close relationship with her. Tell us what she means to you and what this project means to you, her biography.
Well, my grandmother is definitely a person that has set a lot of standards for her children and her grandchildren. She's always lived with this value of being able to support people and your community, as well as being able to provide for them. She's always provided for her children and her grandchildren, everyone in her family, and it sets a standard for me as well to live up to when I come of age.
Tell me about any of the little special things. I know you've been around her a lot, that you remember about her. Not that she's not here with us anymore, but that you recall from your early days.
I remember she was always very avid about me getting to read and write so I could have a good standard for education. She would always help me, and I would help her in the garden and everything, working the earth and all of that.
In fact, I think there's a picture of you in the garden with your grandmother, if I'm not mistaken. Is that, tell us who are the folks in that picture.
Right there is me to the left and my mom in the middle and my granddaughter at the right. Kind of generation kind of picture,
3 generations,
Yeah.
Alberta Christian, right? Any final words about what do you think is important about this project to young boys and girls or families around the world? Not just West Indians.
Yeah, this project, it kind of shows the life that she lived and the life that she continues to live. When she was younger and on the island and everything, and how she was able to do so much for her island and create a name for herself. And I hope that will inspire other people to do the same as well, to give back to their community and where they come from, being able to learn about themselves and do good work.
Outstanding. And in that regard, I was told that you were part of a green project at your school. Give us a brief summary of that.
Yeah, that green project, it's set by one of our own magnet teachers because I'm in the environmental science magnet and everything. It's open to anyone who wants to, go through the school and look at certain things, work our school gardens and check to make sure that we're living by all the standards that the Maryland Green School Association is, setting.
Outstanding. Very much. Thank you so much, Britt. I'll ask you to pass the microphone on to McConan Leonard Christian. McConan, tell us who your parents are and tell us where you go to school.
Hi, thank you. My name is McConan Christian again. My parents are Gabriel Christian and Joan Christian. I am currently in my sophomore year at Bowie State University in Maryland.
What are you studying?
I am studying biology.
Indeed. And tell us a bit about your grandmother and this project. Her memoir has come out, A Woman of Substance. What value do you think that project is to the Caribbean American and wider American community, indeed the world?
While speaking on my grandmother and on the book at the same time, I'd like to point it out as maybe a novelization or sort of capture of communal figures that we often have in our lives that are of note but maybe do not get the attention they deserve. So someone who has devoted a good portion of their life to volunteerism and servicing their community is now being given the chance to, on hopefully a global scale, be recognized by other people and maybe even inspire and influence them.
Can you tell me on the issue of volunteerism, which is that civic leadership, that volunteerism is so important. How has it inspired you in your own life to be a volunteer? And tell us what you do in the voluntary sphere.
Personally, I'm a member of the East Coast chapter of the Tuskegee Airmen, of course the legendary African-American fighter pilots who participated during World War II. Currently, I am not a pilot of myself, but I'm a member of the community service chapter, in which we do things like offer our youth and aviation program to teenagers who seek their pilot's license. We instruct them from a academic level all the way to the actual flight simulation. So that is a project that the chapter undertakes. We also have our youth breakfast, which recognizes our OTC students in the area, I guess you could say, pre-military training and sort of discipline that they undergo as early cadets before they become official recruits and signed to the military. So that is what I partake in personally currently in terms of communal service.
And do you believe those value systems that, if you remember your grandfather, Wendell Christian, of course your grandmother, what, in closing, can you tell us as a proud person of Caribbean descent of what value to the wider community and lead the world are those systems of family, let's say, discipline and orientation that others could abide by or follow?
Well, you said it yourself, the word is discipline. The fortitude and sort of mental acumen to push forward through various obstacles, maintain astute attention toward your goals, I believe is the one thing that my family has always pushed me toward. So
I'm sorry, Michael.
No, that's all right. Well, I was going to close in saying I believe other people can glean from that, hopefully from this book and from our example as well.
Thank you very much, McConan. Thank you very much, Britt. Thank you very much, Samora. And to the parents who raised you and the community, of course, it takes a village to raise a child. And certainly we thank Alberta Christian for being a strong mom. I always tell people that you could always negotiate with our father, deceased Wendell Christian, when you came to be his bank. Mom didn't negotiate, you just took what you had to get. But it made us better people.
Yes.
And I want to thank you all and continue being exemplary and pass on the message of service, of compassion towards its advantage, and trying to make this world a better place. God bless you all.
Thank you for having us.